Hey Pirate Nation, I'm George Balekji, and welcome to the latest edition of Hall Talk. This week, my panel and I will be talking everything Seton Hall men's basketball. We will be handing out preseason awards, examining the young roster, and Ryan Flannery caught up with Sterling Gibbs at Seton Hall Media Day. This is Hall Talk.
This team needs to show me something for me to believe that they're going to make a run in the tournament.
I think they can have a chance of going over 35 wins without a problem.
Just stepping up from the 4 points to the 17. She's just dropping threes like there's no tomorrow.
But chemistry is an underrated key in college basketball.
That was by far the best game I've seen them play.
This is Hall Talk, and that's how the chalk talks. Welcome back, and this week I'm joined alongside my panel, John Fanta and Vincent Paolella. How you guys doing this week?
Always a great time of year, George. Absolutely cannot wait for the Madness to come back. Vinny, I know that you're excited.
It's fantastic. With all the basketball coming around, it's going to be packed to the Prudential. I can't wait.
Okay, so guys, as we all know, since fall of last year, we had the commitment of Isaiah Whitehead. Now, there's a lot of expectations coming in, a lot of waiting for the fans. But not everyone on this roster has the last name Whitehead on the back of their jersey. There's a lot more guys in Sterling Gibbs, Jared Cena, youngsters, and Kadeem Carrington and Desi Rodriguez as well. Let's examine and look past the roster, past the first big name, which everyone expects in Isaiah Whitehead. What do you guys see in this young roster of Seton Hall?
Well, I see a backcourt-oriented team. I see a team that is going to run the floor really well. Seton Hall has the right backcourt scorers to be a team in the Big East that can match up with any other backcourt. But down low, this is a team that is going to have some questions to answer. And it all starts on Sunday against Mercer. Now, the nice thing is the Pirates have a non-conference schedule that's filled with backcourt-oriented teams as well. They're not going to have to go through somebody like Clay Anthony early in Wichita State and what they were, but the Pirates are going to have to learn who their front court guys are. And I don't think that there really is one set power forward on this team. I think that you have a Brandon Mobley who's going to start. You have an Angel Delgado who's going to start, and then they're going to have to go by committee. This is a by-committee front court. They're going to have to look for different options to get different things done. Angel Delgado's got to be big as a freshman. I mean, this kid has got to perform from the get-go, Vince, because Mobley, for me, is an 8-point-per-game guy. Everybody's expecting him to go into this double-double category. He's never been healthy enough to continually do that. So this front court's by committee. Angel Delgado's got to be the 5. He's got to be that guy from the start. He needs to get around a double-double per game. That's just what needs to happen. They need somebody to go beyond what's expected down low. It's a front court that has a lot of questions, Vinny.
And I'm going to stay there with the front court. You talk about Mobley not being healthy. I think he's a lot healthier than he was last year by far. But this year, I'm really looking at Ismail Sanogo from Newark to really step up depth-wise. Those moments in the game where you have to rest your starters, rest some of your guys that you need in there late in games, I think he's a guy who can come in, help out defensively and offensively with rebounding. He does a tremendous job. He really goes after the ball. And also you mentioned Delgado, they're both going to have to be big as freshmen.
And here's the thing, George. Outside of Brandon Mobley, who was a guy who started for the Pirates last year, brings some experience in that way, the problem here is the Pirates, outside of Mobley, only have a combined 29 Division I minutes out of the rest of their front court. Rashid Anthony, so many questions. We don't know what we're going to get out of the redshirt freshman. Delgado's got to come in here. He's going to start at the 5. They need him to perform, and they need him to do it from the get-go to answer some of these questions because this front court is very inexperienced. The back court, though, has a lot of experience, and as a result, because you have those options, guys are going to benefit when Whitehead and Gibbs take up a lot of attention.
Now, what you guys talk about, you're staying in the front court. Yep. One name you haven't mentioned is Shia Raju, of course, the transfer from Northwestern. We know the height he has is 7'2", and you talk about how there's going to be undersized in the front court. Mobley needs to stay healthy along with Delgado. What you have with Raju is that specialty. He could just stand under the basket, put his hands up. He doesn't have to shoot the ball. When the rebounds come your way, pull him down, and when an offender is driving on you, you got to stop him. He's not talked a lot about. What are the expectations you guys have from the 7'2" transfer?
With Raju, I really feel it's going to take a lot more time with him because he's a new guy coming over. It's just something you may not really see him blossom in this system with Willard till maybe even next year. But you will see him get some minutes, especially if they're having troubles with guys and, like you said, the committee. I think as a rim stopper, just to kind of second-guess guards driving in, I think that will help. but I don't think he's going to have major minutes this year.
Well, it's important to know that he's not going to be available until the second semester as is. So he won't be available right away for the Pirates. Shira Jew coming from Northwestern. I don't know what the expectations can really be for this type of a kid because, frankly, I think the Pirates are still trying to figure out exactly conditioning-wise, exactly his speed. It's going to be a running-gun team. And down low, they've got Mobley and Delgado, who both can run, who both have those capabilities, both very athletic players. I mean, Mobley's used to being that guy that stretches the floor. That's my concern. You're asking Brandon Mobley to be a guy that grinds down low and that pushes people around. He hasn't been that yet. Desi Rodriguez told me in practice earlier this week, he goes, it takes 3 of us to make up what Eugene Teague did. So the Pirates have got to figure that out, and it all starts on Sunday, George. It takes a lot to make up for what Kevin Willard called the Big Bear.
And you talk across the Big East, all the big men across the board from LaDante Henn to Matt Stainbrook.
Yeah.
They all take notice that Teague will be missing. And you bring up Desi Rodriguez, his debut in the exhibition game against Caldwell, 14 and 10, a double-double. What is your X factor out of the team this year?
Well, for me, I really do think that it is Rodriguez. I'm impressed by him. And what he does is, George, he's a guy that's at 6'7", yet he's going to run the floor as a 4. And I know that a lot of other people have Desi Rodriguez as kind of the X guy too, but in terms of the backcourt, who's going to benefit the most? Whitehead and Gibbs take up so much attention. People forget, Jaren Cena is a very, very good shooter. He's a spot shooter. I think that Cena's going to orchestrate the offense, but at the same time, Sterling Gibbs hit that game winner against Villanova. Sterling Gibbs doesn't get that type of opportunity if Jaren Cena doesn't hit a 3 just seconds before that. So the minutes that Jaren Cena had late in games last year are invaluable because those freshmen are going to try to take those minutes from him. I think it's going to be very tough to take those minutes from him because Cena's that good of a player. So if I had to go with an X factor all around, I think Cena's labeled kind of that X factor, the guy that you don't think about at first, but he's the guy that he hits that big shot when you need him to. He did it last year for the Pirates.
And John, just quickly, Kadeem Carrington, the way Willard talked about him in his press conference, he said he compared him to Dwayne Wade. I want to see that. And if so, I would love to see that on the floor with this team running, being able to go out there. It's a very fast team. And I think a guy like a D. Wade, if you comparing him, I think it could be huge for this team.
And both your X factors being a sophomore and a freshman, of course. You look towards Sunday in the Prudential Center when they play Mercer. Of course, Mercer last year, they lost double overtime when they traveled down in Georgia and took them on. What Mercer had last year was about 9 seniors. Now they have about 7 freshmen and 5 juniors. As for Seton Hall, 8 freshmen, 3 seniors, 2 juniors. So there's a lot of inexperience on the court in the Rock this Sunday. What are your calls for the game, Mercer or Seton Hall?
I am taking Seton Hall this Sunday. Mercer really only returns Ike Nwamu, who averaged just over 9 points per game last year, but they lose 71% of their scoring from a year ago. They've got Bob Hoffman, who is a very respected college basketball coach around the country. So Hoffman will keep them around, but Mercer just doesn't have enough firepower to match up with the Pirates.
And that loss that Seton Hall took at Mercer last year, that really, I think that stuck with them for this year. Going in, you still have some of the guys returning, Mobley, Gibbs, Cena. They're going to want to get this one back, and especially that it's at Prudential.
All right, guys, so we see Seton Hall taking the sweep here. And, of course, earlier this year at Seton Hall Media Day, our very own Ryan Flannery was able to catch up with the junior shooting guard in Sterling Gibbs.
All right, I'm here with starting point guard of the Seton Hall Pirates, Sterling Gibbs. Sterling, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Good, good. So, obviously, a big season for you. Obviously, a big-time ending for you last season with the game-winning shot against Villanova. But it just looked like this team was hungry for more. What can you say about that?
I think each season we're hungry. Going into the season this year, we have a lot of young guys. We have a lot of older guys back. So coming in, the younger guys have really stepped up the pressure on everybody because of how excited everyone is to see them play, and as well as the older guys, they're excited for the freshmen to be here. So this is a big season for us, and we're really hungry to get out there and show everyone what we're really made of.
Now, in terms of practices, I mean, what is it like going against these young, quick, fast freshmen? I mean, obviously Isaiah Whitehead, 2014 All-American, but what is it like in practice? I mean, obviously you're guarding them, they're guarding you. I mean, what is it like?
Oh, it's great. It's great because it's competition at every spot. So there's no days off. So because you have a guy trying to take your spot each day. So whether it's Isaiah, whether it's Jaren, whether it's Kadeem, you have competition, and those guys are always going to push you, which is good because that makes the game much easier.
Kevin Willard, I mean, he's said it time and time again. He said it multiple times here today during Seton Hall Media Day. I mean, you and Jaren, time and time again, you guys are the leaders of this team, and Jaren's only a sophomore. You're obviously a redshirt junior. But what is it like being the leader of this team? Obviously there's a lot of youth. You have Brandon Mobley, guys like Harold Scars. But what is it like, being that leader of the team this year?
It's great, to be completely honest. I think me and Jaren, we talked a lot before he even came here, and I think that was one of the keys to him coming here, was because of the fact that we both were going to be leaders. We were going to be able to show different things to our game that others haven't really seen. So I think that's why we both came here. And to be able to show the younger guys exactly like what the Big East is and exactly how to go about college basketball, it's a great feeling, because you're able to tell them different things and they're able to listen to you. And then once you see them incorporate it into their game, it's a great feeling. So
Coach Willard said he goes to bed happy at night knowing he has so many point guards.
Yeah, definitely. I go to bed happy because of the fact that we have so many options to go to, which is good.
All right, and finally, what about you? What about your progression from last season to this season? Willard talked about it today. You've made so many strides in terms of your offense, your leadership. So what do you have to do this season to really, supplement yourself as one of the best point guards in the Big East?
Coach just stressed me consistency. I think last year I was really trying to get my feet wet and trying to really get the overall experience of being able to play in the Big East and play with such high-level guys. But now that I have a year underneath my belt, I think I'm able to really know exactly what the game's about, how to go about different situations. And overall, I just want to show consistency with my jump shot, getting to the basket, and making my teammates better and making the team better as a whole.
Sterling, thank you so much, man. Good luck this season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, so a very good job by our own Ryan Flannery. Guys, what do you think of the quick interview with Sterling Gibbs? And I like that they rolled in the buzzer beater against Villanova, of course, in the Big East tournament from last season.
Kevin Willard said it. He's been so impressed by Gibbs and Jaren Cena with the off seasons that they've had. For Gibbs to take the kind of leadership role he did last year, George, he took a lot of heat. He took a lot of heat late in games last year because he was the guy a lot of times who had the basketball and could not get something done. But I'll tell you what, he was the guy who had the basketball. And the Pirates needed that type of guy because Fuquan Edwin didn't have the basketball late in games. And if he did, well, it just didn't end the best. And we're going to give it to Teague. He's a big man down low. They needed somebody to have the basketball with time ticking down the clock. And Gibbs had so many tough falls that when it came time for the biggest shot, he had so many experiences of missing on that one. I remember standing right behind the basket at Madison Square Garden and hearing Pirate fans go, we've been in this role before. We're about to be in it again. We're about to fall short. But Gibbs was the leader last year when they needed a big shot, and he had the ball in his hands at the very least to facilitate. So you know what? Sterling's the type of guy, he's just a feel-good player in the Big East Conference. I think he's a guy, once again, 14, 15 a game guy. He's got to continue to create ways to score, but he's a leader. He is. Sterling Gibbs is a leader.
And you know what? You talk about that leader. We saw him in the early part of the season last year, the first few games, really come out and attack the basket, get to the line. He really used the advantage of that new rule. You saw it slow down as it adjusted, but he came out aggressive, really wanted to put his name out there, say, guys, I'm here to help this team, and this is what I can do. And you know what? He talks a little bit about having so much depth, about other guys who could bring up the ball. That's why I think he's going to do so much better this year, because now someone else, like a Whitehead, can bring up the ball and maybe set up plays for Gibbs instead of the other way around.
Easy to get along with, too. And you need that. When you have such a young class and a young core, George, you need guys that are easy to get along with.
And you spy, I see in the intro, of course, is what you bring up, how chemistry is an underrated aspect of college basketball. Whenever you're around campus, you always see these guys together. So now we'll bring it in, and we're going to have our preseason awards.
Do it.
Then I'll start with you, preseason MVP.
Well, I'm going to stick with who we just had the interview with, and I'm going to go with Sterling Gibbs. I think he's just going to have another fantastic year. Part of the reason, as I mentioned, they can open up for him. They can get the ball moving to him, set up plays specifically. Whitehead can bring up the ball. There's a lot of guys who can control the ball, and he averaged 13 points a game last year. I think he's going to up that to maybe 15, 16 a game. And then his assists. Now that he's got scores on every facet, I think his assists are going to go up to where maybe he might get some double-doubles this year.
MVP?
Well, you know what? I'm going to go with Isaiah Whitehead, and I think a lot of people were a little bit upset. They said 8 points in an exhibition game against Caldwell. Look, RELAX, okay? He also had 5 assists and 4 rebounds. he also had 5 assists and 4 rebounds. I would rather see 8 points, 5 assists, and 4 rebounds in a preseason game than 14 points and 1 assist.
He's an unselfish player.
Exactly. He's got some unselfishness that I think gets taken for granted. So for a freshman, he's way beyond his years. He's already a leader for this team. And I think he's a guy that's going to average 13, 14, 15 points per game. I think him and Gibbs are going to be right there leading this team together. I think it's a bad thing if Whitehead's averaging 18 a game. I think that means he's basically putting up points that the Pirates aren't getting from anybody else. I think he's a 14-point per game guy, but he's an unquestionable leader for a freshman. I mean, he carries his own pace, and that's why I've got Isaiah Whitehead as my most valuable player. You might not always see it in the stat book, but Isaiah Whitehead creates so much attention, other guys will benefit because of him.
And what I like that you bring up is the maturity that Isaiah has. When I was catching up with Shaheen Holloway, of course, one of the assistant coaches, and he asked me straight up, he goes, what do you think of Isaiah's reputation? I responded to him, I don't know, and he told me because he doesn't have one. And what you looked at in the exhibition game, like you said, he only had 8 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. But when he picked up his 3rd foul, what caught my attention, he went up to the referee, put his hands up, and where you see a normal freshman, a highly touted star as him, he would kind of argue with the ref, he went up to the official himself and said, what did I do wrong? What can I do so this doesn't get called on me next time? There's a lot of maturity there. So now we'll bring it into, for preseason, most improved player.
My most improved player, I'll tell you what, this one is a little bit difficult in having to think about this because you have so many young guys, that's for sure. But you know what? He put on weight in the offseason. I will go with Brandon Mobley down low. He was able to add some weight. He's being asked to be in a different role. I think he's embraced that role. So for me, the most improvement, you're going to see an even more improved Brandon Mobley because he has to be.
You know, and I have Brandon Mobley as well just because he's a guy that can spread the floor. And I think they finally got it with this system, with the amount of guys who could run the floor to really kick it out to him in the corner or a 15-foot from the post. He's just a dynamic player, and you also see the way he's been carrying himself lately. He was hurt a lot last year, and you can really see it on his body language. Now he's happy. He's joking around with the guys. He just seems a lot more relaxed. Even though there's more pressure on him, I feel, because he has to step up as a leader, I still think he's going to do that much better this year than he did last year.
And Brandon Mobley, of course, he said to me as well, he knew all these years here at Seton Hall, it's always been Eugene's paint, it's been Patrick's paint. He's happy that now it is Brandon's paint.
Yep.
All right, so we'll go for our last preseason award, breakout player.
I'm gonna go with the guy who had a pretty nice game in the scrimmage. Desi Rodriguez puts up a double-double in this first game. A dynamic player who can do multiple things on the floor. Like you said, Whitehead attracts a lot of attention. So Gibbs is going to attract a lot of attention. I think he's going to be able to find his niche and be able to attack the basket. And he's also just going to swallow up all those rebounds. That's the one thing I love about this team this year is you just hear being able to watch them in practice, seeing how they go after rebounds and they could jump out of the roof, half of them. Desi Rodriguez is just, I think, going to have a phenomenal year. I know everyone's going to say Whitehead because Whitehead's a new guy coming in, but that's expected. So I'm going to go with Desi Rodriguez.
I really do. I agree with Vinny. I do think that Rodriguez is that guy. We don't know what the minutes are going to be like for him, but I think that he just stretches the floor so tremendously well, and he loves that role, and he loves being a part of that. I'm going to twist the conversation a little bit around and say biggest question to answer. And one of the biggest questions I want to see out of this rotation is where does Kadeem Carrington fit in all this? Because you have Gibbs, you have Cena. How much? We're going to see Gibbs over 30 minutes a game. We'll see.
And numerous times, of course, you see in Stephen Manga put up 9 points in the first half per se, 5 for 9 shooting. But Willard needed to take him out because of defense. I always feel defense is mental. It's all about the effort you want to put forward. I think, for me, Manga would be my breakthrough player if he does surmount defensively. But even at the undersized 4, you still both have Desi being the breakthrough.
Well, yeah, and for me, Stefan Manga, I can't put him as a breakout player because I don't think he's going to get more than 10 minutes a game, if that. So it's tough to put a guy that's been that inconsistent as a breakout player. He's just not a consistent basketball player.
And Desi has that mismatch when he is at the 4. He may be undersized, but he can use it to his advantage rather than just a disadvantage.
All right, so we have our 3 preseason awards, and now we'll hand it off to John. John, take it away.
Well, Pirate fans, I know you're excited. I'm excited. I've got my towel ready for Sunday, no doubt about it. But let's talk for a second. Here's my little address to all of you. This is a good backcourt team. It's an explosive team. I think the Pirates are on the rise. I think they're better than the 6th best team in the Big East. I think it's a top 5 team in the Big East. But if college basketball were just up to recruiting, then Seton Hall, well, based on what the class they have, they'd be the 2nd, 3rd best team in the Big East this upcoming year. But it's not just recruiting. It's not just recruiting. If it were recruiting, then Steve Lavin would be dominating in the country over at St. John's, the kind of recruits that he's brought in. The Pirates have brought in a big-time class. If it were just recruiting in college basketball, then Kentucky in 2012-13 with Nerlens Noel, and I can go right down the list of that roster, they would have won the national championship. Instead, they lost to Robert Morris in the NIT. Patience, my friends, patience. I think this is a very good basketball team. I think it's a very good backcourt. But when you only return 29 Division I minutes in your front court outside of a guy who has averaged 8 points per game, outside of a guy who has been hurt before, and Brandon Mobley, I don't know how you can expect this front court to be dominant. It's not going to be dominant. The good news, the Big East is not dominant. It's not in that kind of a stage. It's not in that kind of a stage, which opens the door up for Seton Hall, which opens the door up for the Pirates and Kevin Willard. Now is the time for the Hall to get on a roll in the Big East. But be patient. You have to be ready in March more than ever, and the Pirates will be. It's time for college basketball. It's time for Seton Hall basketball.
All right, so that wraps it up this week for Hall Talk. Special thanks to John Fanta and Vin Paolella, and of course Ryan for catching up with Sterling Gibbs as well. We're excited this Sunday, 12 p.m. in the Rock. The men's basketball team faces off against Mercer. I'm George Balekji. This is Hall Talk.